Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today we're going to be using quilling paper to make modern art inspired flowers. To start off, we have our color palette here. I'm mostly going to be using some orange quilling paper, but some sage green or some ivory or some steel kind of blues would also work in the creation we're making today. These papers are all 1/8 inch thick quilling paper. We also are going to be using some black. This is also 1/8 inch thick, but we're going to be throwing in some extra detail with some really thin 1/16 inch or 2mm paper black strips as well. For the rest of our supplies, you're going to need a needle tool. You can use a slotted tool for this if you'd like to, or you can use an automatic quilling paper turner. That's fine too. We have some tweezers, some small scissors. For glue, we're going to be using my Elmer's Glue All in needle nose container, but I also have clear glue here, which is going to come in really handy when we're using that black paper. You might want to grab a work board, maybe a cork board covered in parchment paper or something else that's nonstick, and a toothpick to apply your glue. And then after our flowers are made, we're going to be putting them on a piece of mat board. As always, a damp paper towel is probably going to be handy as well, so I have one of those off to the side just to clean my fingers. As far as inspiration goes, this is a specific type of modern art that I was inspired by this week. So it's just using basic circles to give the illusion of flowers, and they're bright colors. We're going a little bit more muted in our color palette. This one is extraordinarily bright for this movement, but I like the single stems. I like just the expression of the flowers, the faces of the flowers looking at you without too much detail, and then a little bit of that black accent as well. This next painting, called Sommerblumen by Sarah Routil, is a little bit more of what we're going for today, even more basic. I like the black stems, and then the outline with the black on top of the flowers is going to lead into what really inspired me here, which is a print that I just found online. It's a digital print by Dream Print Designs, and I really just liked the simplicity of these flowers. I like the circle shapes, I like the black center, and I like the little black dots going around the flowers. So that's really what inspired me to turn that into a piece of quilling paper art. To start our flowers today, we are going to be using the thicker of the black papers, the 1/8 inch paper, and then also the orange. To start with the black, we're going to make the very center of our flower. This is up to you how many strips you want to use. The idea is to make kind of the center of the flower a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder than you might make a more realistic flower. So I am going to glue some strips end to end. And I do this pretty often when I'm making kind of a larger shape. But all you would do is just tear off either end and then apply a little bit of glue where they would connect, just a tiny, tiny dot, and then stack them right on the end. And then you have a nice longer strip. You can do 2, you can do 3. You want to start with 2 and then see if that maybe is the size you're looking for. You can add on to there. It is up to you. You can even add on once these are rolled up, and you'll see in a second what it looks like when you roll them up. So it's just very traditional quilling. We have our needle tool here, and like I said, if you want to use a slotted tool, you can. It'll be okay for this project. And all we're doing is just rolling this entire long strip all the way from end to end. Once it gets a little bit bigger as you're rolling it, it might be easiest to take your quilling off of your tool for this part and just roll it up by hand. But you want to get it all the way to the end, and then you're going to glue down a little bit of a tail that is left. So I'm here now. If you're using white glue for this project, even though it says it dries clear, especially on black paper, it might leave a little bit of a mark if it comes out the sides, and that sometimes is a little tricky to get off. So if that is a concern, you can go ahead and use clear glue. If clear glue kind of oozes out on black paper, it will leave a little bit of a shiny mark, so bear that in mind, but that is an option as well. So now I'm happy with the size of my black. If you want yours to be bigger, you would add more black, just like I'm adding this orange here. But I'm going to go ahead and just start on the color part of my flower. I have some orange strips that I've glued end to end the same way that I did the black. I found the end of where the last black paper was on the coil. If that's tricky to find, don't press it too much. Just feel free to start your color anywhere on the coil. Add a little bit of glue and get my orange strips all stuck on there nicely. And then it's just a matter of rolling that up by hand too. That might take a little bit of time, but you will get there. So I'm just gonna do that off camera, and then we will meet back on the other side. Now the last part of the flower center itself is we're going to add just a ring of black around the color that we added to the flower. This is optional. I did find that it made it look a little bit more finished when I was making my practice flowers. I did some without and I did some with, and I definitely like the look of the black ring on the outside as well. So it's really not very long. It's really just enough to go around 2 times this flower. Notice I did not give any real measurements for this because you're going to be making these whatever size you want. If you want them bigger, you use more paper strips. If you want them smaller, you use less paper strips. It's completely up to you because these are not going to be realistic looking flowers. There's no rules. Do whatever you want. I got my end of my black ring done, and that is going to be the basis for our flower. Now we're going to start with some extra detail. If you recall back to one of those last paintings that I showed you, there was some small black dots coming out of the center of the flower, and they were attached by thin black lines. That's what we're going to be adding here. I have about 3.5 inches of that same 1/8 inch wide quilling paper, and I'm rolling that up end to end in the same way that we did everything else so far. Another tight coil, add a tiny bit of glue, and this one you can leave on your tool as you're rolling it, and then you're going to take that off. I found that for each flower, about 10 of these small circles worked perfectly. And then we're going to be using that really thin black paper to connect these small circles on either side of our flower. So what we're going to be doing is kind of measure a small strip of the thin black paper so that it's just a little bit off either side of your flower center. So I decide that's about enough. Double check that. I like that size. That way I'm going to be attaching one of these small black circles to either end of that skinny black strip. And the strip is long enough so that the little black circles will be on either side of the bigger circle, but they won't be too far off that it's kind of getting out of hand. I'm adding a little bit of that clear glue on the side of my workboard here. And I'm going to be using a toothpick to put the tiniest little dab of glue on the very end of that skinny little strip of paper. I want to only glue it to the very edge of this small black circle that I made. I want to be able to see the center circle. If I can, if you're using a slotted tool, you might not be able to see the centered circle as much. That's okay. I just want to be able to see that opening, just to let a little bit of negative space in through that black circle. I do that on one side, and then I'm adding the same, this time adding the glue onto the circle. I did every combination you can think of trying to glue these little circles to these black strips. This is the hardest part of this project, which is saying something because this really isn't difficult. It's just how to do it without getting it stuck to your fingers because everything is so small here. You can, by the way, you can make these little black circles bigger if you want to. This is just an idea. It's just a starting off point. But as they get set, this is what you're looking for. A circle, a line, and then a circle stuck to the other side. And we're going to be making 5 of those. You can alter the sizes of that strip a little bit. I wouldn't go crazy, but they're not going to be all exactly even. If that's the look you want, then by all means do that. But we're looking for just a little bit of different variation in the length of these strips. Once you have all your little circles glued on, you're going to use your clear glue again just to put some glue right in the center of the strip where it's going to be hitting the flower, because we're going to be laying them across the top just like that. And we're going to be doing the rest of them in sort of crossways all the way around. They're not going to be perfectly even because for this, my flower, I only have 10 of them, so it's kind of hard to make that exactly even. We're just kind of eyeballing it just to get it to look the way we want it. So a little bit of glue there. And then this one, the strip's a little bit longer, so it's going to stick out one way. I would try not to move them too much once you get them on there, because even though we're using clear glue for this part, clear glue definitely works better for black paper. It might still leave kind of a shiny sheen if you move it around too much and then the glue gets kind of rubbed on that black circle underneath. So try not to do that if you can. So now I'm just putting another one on, and I don't want them to look exactly the same on every side. That one's going to be a little bit shorter on one side and longer on the other. And then that one's going to go about there, sort of. Same thing, a little bit of glue on the bottom. And then we have one more. I'm trying to make it so that they are all crossing in the same spot in the center of the black flower, or the black part of the center, I should say. And then that's going to be about where the last one is. We're going to add a little bit more glue there. This comes together very, very quickly. Like I said, other than just trying to get those little black circles on that skinny paper without it getting stuck all over your fingers, this project comes together really, really fast. That's pretty much it for our wacky little flower. And then I made two more, one sort of a pumpkin color, and then this other one here is a deep yellow. And then I'm going to go ahead and make some stems for these. And the stems are going to be made with the thicker of the two black papers, the 1/8 inch. And what we're going to be doing is making a quadruple thick strip. So you've seen me, maybe if you've been following for a while, I make a lot of double thick strips on my channel. And all I do is take a long strip of quilling paper, fold it in half, and apply a thin but steady stream of glue down 1/2. You don't want to miss any spots because that is going to give you a little bit of an air bubble. So once I make sure that I have at least a little bit of glue along one entire half, I fold it up again and run it through my fingers. The combination of the glue and the extra paper is going to make a nice sturdy strip. But because I want this to be even sturdier, I'm going to be doing that again once this dries, fold it in half again, and add some glue to make a quadruple thick strip. I'm going to need one of those for each of the flowers I'm going to be putting on each individual creation. So at this point, I'm just going to lay out my flowers the way I think I like them. My strips have dried. I'm ready to go. What you want to make sure of is that you have a gap heading towards the bottom where you can put your stem. That's really the only important part about how you turn these flowers. As long as you have a spot right at the bottom, straight up and down, where the stem can come out, you should be good to go. You can arrange these however you want. I know right now they sort of just look like spiders on a page, but when you add the stems, I promise they look like flowers. Abstracted flowers, but flowers. So at this point, I am happy with what I have. I'm going to try my best to remember where exactly everything was, and I'm just going to start applying some glue to the underside. I want to make sure that I have glue on each individual little black part that's coming out of the center of the flower. And I want to have some glue on the circle as well. Some glue. And at this point, I realized I do not remember exactly the format of this particular flower. So I am going to just wing it and put it back in a way that I think looks good. So you might want to take a picture of your creation when you have your flowers the way you like them. That's what I do a lot of times when I'm not filming at the same time. But as long as they're not hitting the flowers below it and there's still a space for the stem, I'm just going to go for it. So once you have your glue down, do make sure that you press on each of those little black circles because you want to make sure that they are sticking. You will be able to, once everything's set, if you realize like that one there is not going to dry, I can already tell it's not going to set. So I'm going to go ahead with my toothpick and sneak a little bit of glue under that one and just get it to restick. So after I have all of my flowers together there, I can start with the stems. So, oh, there you go. There's another one that decided not to stick. So pause on the stems. Toothpicks, there we go. So, stems. Everybody's happy, everybody's secure. There is a finished stem that is nice and dry. And what I want to do is, this again harks back to the inspiration artwork in the beginning. I want the stems to come all the way down off the page. These flowers are growing out of this mat board. They're coming off the page. So I kind of measure with my hands where I think the end point will be. And I'm going to go ahead and use my scissors and snip that off. Then I would double check that it actually does fit before you glue this on. It's always a good idea to measure twice and cut once, right? So let's double check that that is actually still a tiny bit longer than I wanted it to be. So snip that off. And then that looks better. So to get these stems to sit up nice and straight, we are going to just dip, dip, dip right down in our little pile of clear glue. And then we're going to just tap, tap, tap just to get any excess off that we want. We don't really want glue seeping out of either side of these stems. We want just enough so it stays underneath. And we're going to hold it for a few seconds just to get it set. Because this is tacky glue, it does set up pretty quickly. You may have to, in order to keep your stems straight up and down, you might have to kind of prop them up with a tool or something if you don't want to hold them for a few seconds, but it really doesn't take long. I noticed after I was done this that this is very slightly crooked, this stem, but you know, that's okay. It's just quilling. Here we go. Everybody's happy. And then we're going to add our other two stems. And that is pretty much all she wrote. And here is our finished quilling. I also have another version with that light blue I showed in the beginning and some ivory. And I hope you can see how I was definitely inspired by the artwork that I showed in the beginning. And I know this might not be everyone's cup of tea. I know that a lot of people really like traditional, very realistic looking quilling flowers, but it's just fun to do something different. And I hope this inspires you to try something new as well. If you're interested in any of the supplies I used, I will leave links in the description box of this video so you can find those there. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave those in the comments and I will answer those as soon as I can. I will also leave a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page in the description box. So if you're looking for any ways to support this channel and keep it growing, I always appreciate that. There's also some freebies in there as well. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be around for my next video, and I'll see you then. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.